Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Laredo Independent School District Board of Trustees Business and Support Services Committee meeting. Today is May 5th, 2015. It is now a little bit past 5:30. Roll call, Mr. Valdez.
Mr. Jesus Martinez.
Present.
Jose Valdez is present. Mr. Ricardo Garza. Absent. Mr. Hector Noyola.
Here.
Ms. Dr. Cecilia May Moreno.
Present.
Mr. Hector Garcia.
Absent.
And Mr. Jose Perez.
Present.
Okay.
Will you all please stand for the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dr. Nelson, item 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public. This time I'd like to turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, who will take us through our first few agenda items. Ms. Ayala.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Martinez, board members, colleagues, and members of the public. I'll begin with item number 1, which reads, discussion and presentation to approve and/or ratify the monthly disbursements for March 2015. Total cash disbursements were recorded at $21.2 million, of which $13.8 million was for the payment of payroll costs, and for the goods and services, we recorded $7.3 million. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'll move on to item 2, discussion and presentation to approve monthly reports and/or other updates or reports. I'll begin with the highlights of unaudited financial statements. Under gifts and bequests, donations for the month of March 2015, we recorded $15,954, and the year-to-date donations were recorded at $113,375.
Mr. Valdez, excuse me.
That doesn't include the donations that parents give in the schools, does it?
If parents are providing donations to the schools, the school will be responsible to record that donation and provide it to us. It should. The answer is yes, it should.
It does. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, continue, please.
Under revenues, for the month of March 2015, we earned $18.2 million, which is 4% or $676,000 more when compared to March 2014.
Bless you.
Under the year-to-date, total revenues earned $134.6 million, which is 3% or $4.1 million more when compared to the same period last year. Here we have our tax collections report summary. Our September to March collections, we showed $25.6 million, which is 88.64% of the budgeted amount of $28.9 million. And then we have the October to March collections in the amount of $25.6 million, which is 86.89% of the adjusted opening levy of $29.4 million. Next, we have expenditures by object. Total expenditures were recorded at $16.2 million, which is 8% or $1.2 million more compared to March of 2014. Then we have the fiscal year-to-date amounts. For up to March 2015, we have $115.6 million, which is 3%. Or $3.3 million more when compared to the same period last year. Here we have those expenditures by functional categories. We expended $73.6 million in instructional services, or 63%, followed by plant maintenance and operations in the amount of $11.6 million, or 10% of total expenditures. Here we have other financing sources or uses. We recorded $1.6 million, which is $1.7 million less when compared to the same period last year. Here we have the administrative cost ratio. The standard ratio is at 11.05%. Our amended budget has a 7.90%. And our fiscal year-to-date ratio stands at 6.19%. Under our general operating fund, here we have the summary of both revenues and expenditures. Again, under revenues, actual amount, $134.6 million, which is 69% of the amended budget. The time lapsed is recorded at 58%. And then we have expenditures in the amount of $115.6 million with open encumbrances of $5.2 million, which if we sum both amounts, it represents 62.25% of the amended budget. Next, we have the child nutrition program. Total revenues earned $13 million, which is 70% of the amended budget of $18.4 million. And then we have expenditures of $11.6 with encumbrances of $4.4 million. If we add both amounts, both amounts represent 77.62% of the amended budget. Here we have our E-rate fund. Revenues earned $548,000, which is 100% of the projected revenues. In expenditures of $542,000 with encumbrances of $1.5 million, which represent 36% of the amended budget. Under athletics fund, Fund 181, total revenues $187,000, which is 92% of the amended budget of $202,000, followed by expenditures of $775,000 with encumbrances of $134,000, which is 68% of the amended budget. Under
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, Ms. Ayala, on the athletics funds, one of the things we were discussing this morning, I can't remember when we were discussing it, but it was basically the idea of charging people to attend our athletic events. And my question for you is, on this chart, where is that money reflected? The money that we receive from gate concessions or
It's
from,
under the revenues in the amount of $187,000.
and the goal is to be at 202,000 by
Yes,
the end of
sir.
the year
Well, that's
to
what
make
we
the
budgeted.
budget.
Yes, sir.
And for the last 3 years, we have had in excess, we have had over $200,000 each year.
No, not necessarily. In 13, 14, we did. In prior years, we were a little bit under, or just about the 202.
So I just bring that up. It's really not the appropriate time as we reflect over all of our balances. But I just wanted to talk to the board about that because we've had some discussions about not charging at the concession, not charging to get into the game for the students. So I don't think we need to make a decision on that right now, and it's totally the will of the board. But I just wanted to show you that this is where it's at. We're budgeting $200,000. Right now, we're a little bit under. If I understand athletics the way I think I do, we're done for the year. We won't be receiving any more revenues. And so basically this year we were $13,000, $15,000 under what we projected.
Yes, we may have a better figure. We end the
Next month.
fiscal year, August 31st. I think we have some games during the month of August.
So we fully support, letting our kids come out. We're not trying to make money on kids coming into the games, but we might need to change our budget if we're not going to charge at the door, at the gate.
We also, depending on what else we look at, but we also need to consider that in some games, we may not be making enough to cover our expenses when we have to have people at the door.
Sure.
So, maybe some of those middle school games, just something to consider,
yes, ma'am.
is that something?
And what are the percentages from football towards basketball and volleyball? I think the majority of the income is mostly football.
In basketball.
Well, and
Yes.
we can look at it by sport. It's just for the
Right.
purposes of this conversation, at the board level, we budgeted we said that we were going to collect $202,000 at the gate. Currently, as Ms. Ayala has just reflected, which this is not an end of the year yet, this is as of March. So we still have April and probably the first 2 weeks of May. And maybe it'll come up. But I just wanted to point it out at this point as we continue our conversations.
It's a lot of money, $187,000, so it's good.
Sure. And, we don't charge at the gate because we're trying to balance our budget. I mean, we're trying to pay for some of our costs. We have to pay for referees, we have to pay for travel, things like that, but uniforms. But, it's the will of the board if that's not something we want to do. Thank you, Ms. Ayala. Please, may we continue, Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead. Now, the answer, was that answered, Ms. Noyola? Was your question answered?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. You're satisfied. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Under Debt Service Fund, revenues, we've received our revenues in the amount of $25.8 million, which is slightly over our amended budgeted amount of $24.6 million. And then we have,
Could you look at that retirement of long-term debt? I don't think that number is correct. The 24 on the year-to-date actual?
24.8 million, 863,802.
Right, but the actual retirement, as of now, does that sound right to you? It looks like
The
it's
three-
the same as the bottom number, which must not be, which looks like it's the wrong
on the
number.
math, the math should be working. Oh, I see. I'll check that.
On the year-to-date actual.
Right. It
24,863,000.
seems that the balances were rolled. I'll check the math on that.
Okay.
Next, we have the statement of cash flows for our health insurance program. Total cash received from user charges, $1.5 million. Cash payments for insurance claims and fees, $1.2 million. Giving us a net cash provided by operating activities of $341,503. We add that to our beginning of the month balance of 6.1. We have cash and cash equivalents at the end of March in the amount of $6.4 million. Next, we have the special revenue funds. Do we have any questions? We do have the Director of Federal Programs here that can assist.
Well, we have a lot of those Title I funds that haven't been spent. Cigarroa High School has encumbered something but hasn't spent any of it. We have Title I, McDonald Elementary hasn't spent any, has encumbered some but hasn't really spent any of it. Could we get a chance to see how the money is going to be spent, what's budgeted for that money? Because that's still, available balance is still pretty high.
Yes, ma'am. I visited personally with each of the campus administrators of these 11 campuses, and that's exactly what I asked of them, a timeline and their plan for expenditure based on what was in the program abstract of the grant. Most of them have it for extended year services for the summer and for some staff development, but I will be getting that, and we can make it available to you hopefully by the end of next week or the following.
So could we see where in our summer school program these funds will be used? Because it could be that they could have some special summer programs for their,
Absolutely.
for
And
the
that is
students at
exactly what
that
they are. They're
school.
supplemental. They're above and beyond to anything else that we are providing. And that's
Right.
why I'm asking for a description of the programs directly from the campus administrators.
So they should, but we should be able to have them in the big packages in terms of.
Yes, ma'am.
When we look at the whole summer program, to be able to say these are being funded from our SIG funds.
We will add them as soon as I get them from the campus. That can be done.
Okay.
Bobby. Absolutely, Dr. Moreno. We'll follow up on that. Any other questions about special revenues? Mr. President, members of the board.
No, go ahead.
Also, the Priority One schools, Lamar Middle School still has almost $500,000 that they haven't spent.
Yes, ma'am. That will be an incentive for the teachers. We're waiting for the scores to come in. The incentive payout should be done. If it's not done this month, it would be done in June at the latest.
Now, how about the Educator Excellence Grant?
Is that the one we sent back? Is that the one we sent back?
We are considering,
Go
right.
to the podium, Bobby. This is a
It's almost
grant,
$500,000, it's almost $1 million.
right. To be honest with you, this grant is really tied, in my opinion, to several legislative bills that are currently being discussed. This was a grant that we were invited to apply for that basically ties teacher performance to their evaluation. And there are several bills right now in the House and in the Senate that are going to mandate that change. They haven't been approved yet. We were trying to work with TEA to be one of the few pilot districts that looked at piloting that program because there's just a move across our state and country to tie teacher evaluation to performance. As we went to look into the grant and some of the requirements of it, I was uncomfortable with going forward with that grant. So we have decided to not pursue it at this time with the understanding that it was a pilot, it was a request for pilot school districts, and we may or may not have to revamp our teacher evaluation system as soon as the fall. We already start having those conversations, but that's the answer to your question about that grant. We sent it back.
Okay.
That number 482 grant,
Dr. Hockman,
yes. You know,
that's the vision or dental, he comes and helps.
It's a doctor,
Yes.
yes, the teachers apply for those grants. Each school applies on their
That's right,
own. And
yes.
then,
He does that every year across the
Right.
city.
right.
but
we-
if he gives us a grant and we don't spend the money, that's not very nice.
No, we'll have it spent before the next meeting. That balance will be zero.
Okay.
Any more questions? May I move?
Yes,
You know,
please.
I have one question, Mr. President. As I'm
Okay.
looking at this as well, my question is that if we were to enter into, we have a subsequent agenda item that speaks of a partnership that we are proposing for literacy. And it is a collaboration between the Laredo Independent School District, Texas A&M International University, and the Lamar Bruni Vergara Trust. And my question is, would that change line 486 if the board was to approve that?
We would open a separate line item, Dr. Nelson. We would not commingle it in the same.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
But could some of these funds from any of these be used to support those
Offset that.
tutors that are?
We'll definitely do that analysis. Yes, ma'am. May we proceed, Mr.
Okay.
President?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Ms. Ayala?
Lastly, we have the summary of construction funds. Are there any questions on this schedule?
No.
No? Okay. Item number 3.
Okay,
Hold
before
on,
we get
sir.
into item number 3, we have a guest tonight for a presentation, Mr. Salinas. Maybe we can bring this item first, and
Sure.
then, okay?
For the record, we'd like to welcome Mr. Rogelio Trevino, very
I'm sorry.
good friend of mine and colleague, and just a great supporter of public schools here. Our work agendas are uniquely tied. He is the executive director of Texas Workforce Solutions. He and our career and technology director, Ms. Cynthia Sanchez, have worked on a unique partnership that we're very excited for our teachers, that basically is an opportunity for them to work on some of their professional development needs and be compensated for that while partnering with Texas Workforce Solutions. I'd like to invite Ms. Sanchez and Mr. Trevino. I'll ask Mr. Trevino if you'll please come to the podium and just offer a few introductory remarks to our honorable board, and then Ms. Sanchez can explain a brief overview of the program. For the record, it's agenda item number 11 that reads, discussion and presentation on Laredo ISD's partnership with the Workforce Solutions for South Texas Teacher Externship Grant Program. Mr. Trevino?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, members of the board. Rogelio Trevino, Executive Director, Workforce Solutions for South Texas. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this afternoon. This is a unique opportunity that the Texas Workforce Commission has put out opportunities for the local regional workforce boards to apply for externship funds to work with the local school districts to develop private sector externships for the teachers during the summer months so they can actually go out and work in the private sector and get exposure to some of the skills and some of the requirements that employers are asking for of their workforce, of the student or the people that are coming into the workforce. So the teachers are able to get hands-on experience of what's happening out in the work world. They come back and they develop lesson plans and put that back into the classroom. That's the concept that was requested by the Workforce Commission that we try and implement in our local area. So we're very fortunate to be able to work with Ms. Cynthia Sanchez here at LISD. We did submit a proposal to the state, and we did receive funding to implement this program here. So that's what we're recommending, is that we be able to implement the program here. We're looking at about 4 different industries that are growth industries: the trade and transportation, the healthcare, oil and gas, and the criminal justice also would be the industries where we would be placing the teachers during the summer. But it's an exciting project, and it's a great way to bring in partnership with the businesses in our school districts.
Any comments or questions for the board? We'll be recommending approval for this.
Mr. Rick Garza is now present. Just information to the board.
Yeah,
Mr. Valdez?
Did you mention import-export on that? Yes.
Yes, sir. Definitely. That's one of the first industries that we looked at.
Good. I know we've been working on that. So.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, as you know, we haven't heard about this program at all until now. Okay, so I do have a few questions. This is a program, if I got this correct, where teachers who do not work teaching in the summer will be placed in the private sector somewhere.
For a week.
What is the target number
10.
or projected?
Well, in total, sir, with LISD, we're looking at 10 teachers. 10 teachers here at LISD.
That's all?
Yes, sir. It's a small grant. It's an implementation grant that they put out. We're going to look at serving a total of 30 in South Texas region. We're going to do 15 with UISD, 10 with yourselves, and 5 with Zapata.
Now, the next question is this, will the employers be subsidized?
No, sir. They are actually volunteering and being partners in this as part of the community.
They will be
understand.
paying salaries from their own resources?
The salaries for the teachers are paid through the grant. We will reimburse the school district for the salaries. We're actually funding the salaries.
Okay. Good job.
Thank
And
you.
these are vocational teachers, right? The vocational programs, or?
Yes, good evening, board members. These are actually STEM teachers. We're focusing
right,
on science, math, and
science and
technology.
math.
And the idea is not only do they go and get to see what's going on in the workforce, but they're specifically looking at their subject area. So if they're math teachers, they're looking, how is math being used here? So they can bring it back to their classroom. They'll have the opportunity to collaborate with others and write lesson plans, and then be able to tell the kids, you know, this is the reason we study math, because I just went a couple of weeks ago and I saw this being done. And so that brings the relevance back to the classroom, and that's the whole idea behind this.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, just an observation. We have hundreds and perhaps close to 1,000 youth who need jobs, okay? Now, these 10 teachers, I'm glad that they're going to be working in the summer, but they already earn salaries, am I correct? Okay? So, again, I don't know if this has any impact on the overall economic picture of our community. In other words, addressing the unemployment or the unemployed. So this program does not address the unemployed. Am I correct? I remember that this young lady gave me a card once. Remember that card? One of the most beautiful cards that she's laughing because the card said that I should be so lucky that I don't have everything.
Okay, I think,
But coming back to this,
okay.
it's only 10 teachers, it's fine, but I'd like to know, what is the Workforce Solution doing about the unemployment of our youth in the summer? I remember we used to have those programs here in the school district some years back, remember? We
Yes,
used
sir.
to put some funds together and hire about 40 or 50, and it wasn't much, you know.
Hundreds.
Not 100, well, that was with the federal program, so, but on our own. Yes, and they would hire, of course, you know, the relatives of this, that, and the other. But still, you know, that's the way it worked. But our CFO used to do that. And coming back to this, I'd like to know, are we doing anything about the summer youth program? Those are the ones that are really out there needing services.
The funding streams have changed, sir. The way, back in when we were serving under Job Training Partnership Act and the manpower programs, way back in those times, the focus was primarily on the job seekers and getting them out and working and getting them these temporary type jobs and getting them some exposure, some experience. Over the years, the federal legislation has changed and focused more on meeting the needs of the employers and working with our local training providers to ensure that the students that are in the pipeline are getting the skills for when they graduate, they'll have jobs. The summer jobs programs, those fundings have pretty much died out. There was a time when I remember, you know, what you're talking about, we used to serve 1,200 students a summer, you know, we would have a lot of kids working in the summer. Those funds have basically dwindled. We still help youth find employment. We work with the businesses in Laredo, and we'll refer the youth to those jobs. We just don't subsidize them anymore.
Thank you. I think you've told me we're not doing anything.
Well, we have 12 positions. We're looking for 12 lifeguards. So that's about as much as we do.
Okay, and again, the program's purpose is to enrich the teachers with a 1-week experience
Sure.
in the workforce so that they can bring that information back to the classrooms to enrich the teachers so they can do a better job in, not a better job, but to bring that specific area of knowledge to the classrooms. Thank you, sounds real good.
Thank you,
Mr. Martinez?
President.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr.
I
Pettit.
just
I'm
want to
sorry.
make some comments. Along these lines, and I don't know if the workforce could do something about it, but we do need bus drivers training because the institutions of higher learning just have the semi-trailer type of endorsement, and we need a specific program to where they address with the school buses.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if they can help us in any way, you know, as they go through all the programs that they have, so they can set up something, because we usually don't get trained bus drivers that we need. We usually cannot get it just from the street, so they need a particular type of training in a school bus. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'll look into that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, sir.
Also, before we conclude this, Mr. President, I did want to, with mixed emotions, I want to announce that our Career and Technology Director has selected to enter into retirement. And so that was probably her last presentation in front of the board, and she's done an outstanding job, and we're going to miss her as she enters into retirement. Ms. Cindy Sanchez.
She's going to retire? Or
Yeah, I
Are
know.
you sure you want to
We'll
retire?
go check her HR. Maybe she doesn't quite have
you
the years
started
of
too many,
service.
you have too many programs on the, in the district. You can't retire just like that.
She's
Sorry.
great. Yeah.
We're going to assign them to the child nutrition director, other duties.
Oh,
assigned.
okay.
Just kidding.
She's done
Okay.
a great job.
Sorry, go ahead. Item 3?
Let me go back. Okay. Item 3, discussion and presentation on the following budget amendments. 3A, BA number 1415-33. This is discussion and presentation to approve the QZAP 1, QZAP 2, and QZAP 3. Approve the transfers in the amount of $11,996 to fund canopy projects at Ryan and Martin High School.
Okay.
Item
Next.
3B, BA number 1415-31, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $115,941 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories. Item 3C, BA 1415-32, discussion and presentation to approve the 2014 bond series in the amount of $636,152 to allocate funds for pre-construction expenditures for the final phase of Lamar Middle School. Item 3D, BA 1415-34, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $56,075 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories from the Board of Trustees discretionary funds. Any questions on budget amendments? May I proceed, Mr.
Yes, please.
Martinez? Item 4, discussion and presentation to approve and award the following bids, proposals, quotations, and contracts. Item 4A, this is a renewal, RFP number 13-020, student and catastrophic insurance. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to the brokerage store for an estimated amount of $158,000.
Okay.
Item 4B, this is also a renewal, RFP 13-006. This is for bank depository services. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to BBVA Compass Bank for an estimated amount of $60,000. Item 4C, renewal, RFP number 13-019, repair of appliances and kitchen equipment. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to VMW Maintenance for an estimated amount of $30,000. Item 4D, this is a renewal, RFP number 14-012, removal of grease from traps and barrels. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to South Texas Wastewater for an estimated amount of $71,350. 4E, renewal, Texas Co-op Vendor Region 1, number 14-03-14, facility sanitation, linen, and uniform rentals and services. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to Portion Pack Chemical Corporation for an estimated amount of $90,500. 4F, renewal, the TCPN number R4954 and U.S. Communities Co-op number 11019. This is for building and maintenance supplies. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to Lowe's Home Improvement, Granger, and the Home Depot for an estimated amount of $75,000.
Question, Mr. President?
Yes.
So, Ms. Ayala, just for clarification from our committee meeting earlier on this topic, the cooperative purchasing network is not located in Laredo, is that correct?
Correct.
That's a Region 1 co-op? Based in
It is
Austin.
coming from
But
Austin.
then if approved by this board with a unanimous vote or with a majority vote, the co-op will then work with Lowe's to purchase the wood or nails and lumber and things that we need.
The local Lowe's, yes.
So I think that's important for the board to know. So even though TCPN is not, if approved, they're going to buy stuff from local, so that'll stay local.
Right. Mr. Valdez?
How many local providers besides Lowe's do we have in Laredo, like Dr. Ike's? And do we have any more? On the Mines Road, I know that I believe the builders of
McCoy's.
Armadillo Homes provide also materials for sale. Have they been contacted?
Seems like the question would be, have they expressed an interest in the district?
No?
Yeah.
We can contact them if they don't want to have an interest, that's something else.
Yes.
But,
For the record, Gustavo Alcantara, the procurement director, we do notify local vendors, and then they have to submit the proper paperwork, vendor packets, proposal forms, et cetera.
So if you have a company you'd like us to contact, we'll be glad to for the future.
Okay.
My point is not just to send a message out, through the media, that even if anybody's interested, they may not get to see the announcement. But if we know that they're vendors or that they provide these materials, they should be aware that we are purchasing.
Yes,
That's
sir.
my point.
I want to add that this is a renewal for the third year. In other words, this really was awarded 3 years ago. We're just renewing the final year because it's only good for 3 years.
Yes.
And then you'll have to go out again. What I'm not sure about is, did we get all cooperative contract pricing, or did we put out an RFP?
The co-op puts out, the way the
No,
co-ops
but in
work.
this case, in our case, are we only using cooperative pricing, or did we put out an RFP?
No, we do not put out an RFP, the co-op puts.
We're using cooperative pricing?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the great thing about the co-op is
So under-
that Lowe's all over the
Right.
state participate in it.
Right, but for instance, a store like Dr. Ike's, because they're local, they wouldn't be able to participate because we didn't invite anybody to participate. We only
The-
went to the co-ops and looked for the best prices.
That's correct. They'd have to participate through the co-op. But we have other local vendors such as Gonzalez Auto Parts that do participate in co-ops and that we do utilize.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alcantara. I
But
appreciate that.
the co-op goes out and tries to talk to all these other vendors, right, besides
They do
Lowe's?
try.
That is correct.
Okay, so they do try, and hopefully they will contact our local vendors also.
Well,
I know that from, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mr. President, I know from my personal experience, it takes the individual to sign up with a co-op.
Sure.
And if not,
As it-
if you're
as it
interested in
should.
doing, because this happened several times already, where, and our preference is to use local people first, and at least it's my preference to push them. But if they can't compete against a co-op like that, it's kind of very difficult for us to be using them when the best value is through the co-op. And so, but I encourage them. In fact, I've told several people about some people that had not been aware of this. I mean, I try to encourage as many people as possible when they call me about that, to sign up for those co-ops.
Mr.
I
Valdez?
know that there's two
Excuse me.
co-ops out there
Ms.
that have
Moreno?
been looking for local people to participate. The Region
Region
1
One.
co-op always sends information trying to get some of the vendors from Laredo to participate.
Correct.
And the one that Mr. Amezcua has, Harris County Department of Education,
Yes. Correct.
they try to get, they were trying to get a co-op of just local people, to participate, or regional, to participate in a co-op, so that they would learn the mechanics of how to be a part of a co-op.
Those are great ideas. We'll take a look at that.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, one of the concerns I have is that when you talk about economic development in a community, okay? If you use local resources or resources available to you, because a lot of these resources come to us from the state.
Yes,
But
sir.
if you use these resources to outsource the profits or the gains, then those entities that receive those will not be reinvested in your community. And sometimes we bypass the local resources or the local entities, basing ourselves on theories that buying through a co-op is cheaper, okay? But our purchasing procedures are that we do not necessarily always buy the cheapest, we buy the cheapest and the most responsible. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Best
Okay.
value.
So when you look at that, again, if we have local providers, like for example, I think we identified Dr. Ike's, ¿verdad? And they hire local people.
Everybody
And
else
so on. And they should be contacted. We shouldn't wait for them saying, we should contact these people. In other words, as an effort on our part, saying, look, we have this, we want to make sure that you know about it. If they say we cannot compete with a co-op, we say that's true, but you're not competing with a co-op. This board is the one that makes the decisions. And if
Yes,
we
sir.
find that the prices here are equal, I think we would make the right decision.
Yes, sir.
That's a concern that I have.
Sure.
Thank you.
Next item.
4G.
This is also a renewal, RFP number 14-021 for a writing consultant. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to the Writing Academy for an estimated amount of $80,000.
And I'd like to make a comment. One of the things that we received as part of the backup was information on the number of students that attended or participated, and it was very good information, but having looked at it, I want to point out that it shows some schools really doing a real good job in participating and some schools in need of participating.
Yes, ma'am.
And Cigarro High School, for instance, had the highest number, almost doubled in some cases, of their students participating in the writing project.
Yes.
It was sad, not sad, but it's strange to see that the early college had more students participating than Nixon, when Nixon is much bigger. So I think we need to use this data to notify the principals of where they need to be participating in these opportunities that we're bringing for them.
Yes, ma'am. Great idea.
I have a question.
Yes. Mr. Valdez?
Okay, I have a question on this writing consultants. In a nutshell, they provide workshops, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If, I think it would be appropriate if we do a little bit of research. What has been the results of these workshops? Have we improved?
Right.
Again, because if we're not improving, why would we? I think we better do it in a different way.
That's a point
I
well
don't
taken.
know exactly what these writing consultants do now. I sit here, we're approving $80,000 for writing consultants. I'm getting a master's degree in creative writing. You know, I wonder what this is.
You like
It rings a bell. It rings a bell, you know, saying, well, what do you do? How many workshops does it take?
They
See,
work-
when it comes to the
they-
board, how many workshops?
They work with students and teachers at the same time, and they did give us a list of all the workshops they did, the dates, et cetera, et cetera. It was part of the backup, Mr. Valdez.
Well, this only tells me that they were there. It still doesn't tell me what they do, but I need to talk to somebody else about
Okay.
that.
Yes, sir. We'll provide
It
you
brings up
more.
an interesting question, because I
Maybe
had
it
brought
was
it
in
up
the
several
backup.
times before on the issue of what are the measurable results of getting consultants and at every level. I know that I don't know if it's impossible to do, I don't know if it's measurable to do, but I agree with Mr. Pettis, because sometimes we sit up here and I'm sorry, with Mr. Valdez. I also agree with Mr. Pettis on everything. So, and so, but the end result is that sometimes it's difficult to make that decision.
Yeah.
To say it's okay, but I think to make it a little bit more elaborate on the explanation of what it does. I know it's part of the packet, but it goes to show that there's a ton of them that go by us annually. You know, and so you kind of get confused as to what goes to what, and are we getting the results we need out of them? And on any occasion, if the end result after this, we get some sort of backup information that says, you know, worked out well, didn't work out well, we'll look
Sure.
further into it, whatever the case may be, just to back it up.
It's a good point.
I still don't know what they do. I know they've been somewhere, and they collected money, but I don't know what they do.
Well, they teach the teachers. how to
Well,
do
we
their
got
job, I
teachers,
hope.
we got teachers here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We'll follow up.
Next item.
4H.
This is a renewal. Region 1 Co-op Vendor Number 14-02-12, Staff Development and Instructional Materials. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to teacher-created materials for an estimated amount of $250,000.
Read the bottom part, too.
4I, renewal, TASB Buy Board, vendor number 407-12. This is for calculators. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to D&H Distributing for an estimated amount of $112,418.
And we are buying the kind of calculators that the teachers want, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
Item 4J, RFP number 15-001, janitorial supplies. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding contracts to Gulf Coast Paper and Pyramid School Products for an estimated amount of $640,000. Item 4K, RFP number 15-002, instructional consumable supplies. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding contracts to AFP Industries, Executive Office Supplies, and Pyramid School Products for an estimated amount of $465,000. Item 4L, RFP number 15-012, Nixon High School Campus exterior perimeter disassembly of materials at portable sites. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to American Contracting USA for an estimated amount of $135,000.
That's Portable City, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Item 4M, RFQ number 2014-009, Professional Environmental Consulting Engineering Services. This is for project number 3, Harding and Urban Buildings, Division of Plant Facilities and Support Services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Castle Engineering and Testing for an estimated amount of $15,000. This will be in effect for the term of this project only. Item
Sorry,
4.
Can you go back a little bit to, and give me a little bit more of an explanation on the 4L?
May I respond, Mr. President?
Sir?
Mr. Garza, we're at the situation with the Nixon construction project where the final phase, in my opinion, I'm not sure it's the final phase, but the final phase is to disassemble the portable city, which is the area so that we can build the track and field. And so we went out for a bid on that project, and I was uncomfortable with the specifications that outlined it.
Let me just, no,
Okay.
and all of that is fine. The only thing is that on this thing, it gives me a 1-year duration instead of, does it put a 1 month or 2 month duration on the contract? 1 month, right?
It's actually 27
Well, we
days.
can make it project-specific if that is the wish of the board. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, well, if it's on the contract, that's fine. I don't have a problem because the way it's worded here, it gives you a 1-year option to say yes or no on this issue, right?
Or renew it.
In effect for a period of 1 year, beginning May 15, 2015, ending May 14. But you're going to have to award the contract sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Right.
Right.
To get this thing going, and if not, it's going to delay the project over there.
Well, we can work on the dates to make it project-specific if that's
Right,
what
we'll
you
talk
wanna
about
do.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, just to bind it, because I know I don't want to prolong it, because after it's all said and done and gone, we need to continue with that area of the project.
We agree.
Yes, sir. Item 4N, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program, vendor number 14-0.
Excuse me, Ms. Ayala, we'd like to table 4N,
Okay.
as in Napoleon.
Yes, sir.
We'll bring it back in June.
Item 4O, RFP number 15-010. This is federally funded apparel. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding contracts to Duratex Apparel and Williamson-Dickey MFG for an estimated amount of $25,000. Item 5, we have tax refunds. Do you have any questions on those tax refunds? We recommend approval. If not, Dr. Nelson, item 6.
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. Item number 6 is discussion and presentation on the district goals. Mr. President, members of the board, as you know, we had a workshop in March and a follow-up conversation in April where our purpose is to revisit our goals for 2015, 2016. My executive assistant has placed at your docket a sheet that is entitled 2015-2016 Proposed District Goals. There was another document that was uploaded as background information for this agenda item, and we're asking you to look at the current one that we placed here today because it has some updates. What you'll see is 7 goals that we're proposing The first six should look very similar because they're similar to what we've had in the past, but we've modified our goal 5 to where we removed facilities operations management to be its own separate goal, goal 7. So we'll be recommending approval of this. The next step would be to develop superintendent goals and indicators based on these district goals. Any comments or questions?
Just one. I have my comment on it, as far as I'm reading, I'm very happy that this is in place now. Now we have something to shoot for annually.
Yes, sir.
And we have a basis by which to evaluate, for lack of a better word, evaluate each and every
department.
Department as we go along. I mean, we had a saying at our Rotary Club that was part of the 3 rules that we followed, and one of them was, is it fair to all concerned? And one of the things that I saw as part of this, it pretty much followed along the 3 rules of Rotary. So, but I want to make sure that every decision that we make falls under these guidelines. That way we don't veer away from our I guess our goal that we set at the beginning of the year, or our goals that we set at the beginning of the year.
Yes, sir.
That way we're not shooting all the way around and not hitting the target.
Point well taken. May we proceed, Mr. President?
Yes, please.
Item number 7 is discussion and presentation to amend the Board of Trustees discretionary funds by, it says there for the record, $248,003 to increase athletic stipends as presented. Mr. President, members of the board, you have a document that looks like this. It's landscape. And it has an update that actually the number that after our team has reviewed this, our recommendation is not $248,000. It is actually $243,108. What that will include, and this is real important because there's actually a piece that we're introducing for the first time tonight. As we went and reviewed this, the reason this is being brought is because several trustees, I don't want to name them, but Mr. Noyola, Dr. Moreno, Mr. Garcia, who's not here tonight, Mr. Garza, have all pretty much for the last 6 months asked us to bring back a proposal to make our athletic coaching stipends more competitive. And so we've gone through that process, and you'll see that we have the proposal as presented. Now, we've had conversations about going over what our neighboring district is, and this proposal is just to match. So we're not sure what that will create in terms of they may adjust theirs. The other main issue that we need to clarify.
So how is this different from what you presented to us earlier?
The last, when we met in curriculum committee, we presented you a chart that had the 248,000 number on it.
Right.
And that number included athletic coordinators' entire salary.
Right.
Which, if you remember, we discussed, that's not apples to apples.
Right.
So what you'll see here is under the peach-colored part of this document, staff is recommending an adjustment, which is más o menos 5% for our athletic coordinators that would adjust their salary because they don't currently receive a coaching stipend. And if we don't do that, then what you're going to have is some offensive and defensive coordinators who technically may make more money than the coordinator. And so we're trying to avoid that. So where it says comparison stipend, that's the number we're trying to get to. And the sensitive part of this but we feel real good about it, is we're humbly and respectfully asking the board to consider allowing us to adjust the discretionary funds to where each trustee would still have $40,270 to use at their discretion for discretionary.
So how did we go from 248 to 243 if we took out those 3 salaries?
Right, because we took those out, and if you'll see, it changed. We took it out of the LISD number and the comparison stipend, which is UISD. So theirs was at 99. And so,
So 3 times 99,
for the comparison stipend,
right? You took out 399, so
And we, hi, Maggie Martinez, Executive Director for Student Services. We also added the new middle school coaches that we want to include for next year's.
I knew there was a difference.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's the other 12,000, Dr. Moreno.
Well,
of
that's
the
not
new-
the point. The point is that it's just different than what we looked at, and nobody tells us that it's different. You just give it to us.
We hadn't
Yeah, you're
added
right.
next year's in our goal for this.
I don't disagree, but I think
Clarity,
we need to be
transparency,
told,
yes.
instead of just giving us a piece of paper right before the meeting.
well, we're not asking for a
told that
vote
it's the same
tonight.
thing.
Right.
It's not the same thing.
It's not, and we,
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, that's not the issue here.
Well,
Okay.
that's one of the issues.
That's not the issue. The issue here is, do we take the money from the discretionary funds? That's the issue here.
Why
Okay?
pick another?
In other words, we have already gone over this before. Okay? What we're doing here is saying, look, we need it for the athletic. We'll get the money for the athletics, but who says that it has to come from here?
right.
Okay?
Whose
Yeah?
idea was
That's the real issue here. Is that your recommendation, that we dip into this? Even your department has asked us for discretionary funds. Okay? Well, I'm asking.
Well, no, our recommendation
Because
just
that
to.
is the issue, not whether we pay the stipend.
Yes.
We agree on the stipends, okay?
Yes.
I even said, I even made right.
Yes,
I
it's
even made the
already-
statement that that may not be enough. Because we want to make sure that we equal another district that is close by or even be better than them. That's not the issue here. The issue here is whether we dismantle a program that has been very popular with active trustees in the school district. Because every penny that is spent by discretionary funds is not at the discretion of really the trustee. It is a petition from employees. Okay? So that is the issue before us right now. And I don't think that it's not only not fair, but it's not correct, to hide behind the athletic department trying to say, if you don't cut the discretionary funds, we won't give it to the athletic department. That's not true, okay? That's not so. So, we go back to this, I guess some board members have to go and sit with the finance department and find this money, okay? But the issue here is not whether we want to provide these amounts. Yes, of course, that's not the issue,
Yeah,
all
me
right?
too. Mr. Garza?
Yeah,
How do you spell transparency?
Okay, Mr. Garza?
You got me thinking about that word.
Está riendo.
No, and I agree with Joe. I mean, in terms of the teachers come and ask us, this is my backup to that. It is a petition when they come and ask us for our funds to do this. The reason why I agree with him is that it's become popular, more people are getting dependent on it. Yet, we have, I'm in agreement with using part of our stipends if we can't find it anywhere else. And that's where I'm coming from. Because I truly and honestly believe that this source of income that we're trying to provide for these coaches is absolutely necessary. It's something we've been pushing for a long time. If there is no other way to get it, then I'm willing and support that it get taken out of my fund.
No,
And-
not mine.
That's what I'm saying. So we have the option for that. And the only reason why I said that is because over the last year, since we've been using our discretionary funds, I've come to learn that some of the items that we purchased under my discretionary funds should have really come after capital improvement. And we could have put those funds. So I know capital improvements, I should have ended up putting the marquees, anything having to do with a fixture for a school should have been placed on that, and therefore I could have had funds left over at the end of the year. So it doesn't matter where, to me, it's either we're taking from one pocket and putting it in the other, or taking from one hand and giving it to the other. Doesn't matter. But if from my perspective, if this is the only route we can take, I'm all for it, because it accomplishes the goal that I'm trying to do. More importantly than my fund is funding these coaching stipends.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Perez, please.
I feel the same sentiment. I think that we can find the money somewhere else and I'm not arguing about the stipends that they need, but to come and say that they've taken away the money for the discretionary funds, but I think that's the way the board members can help out some of the schools, because when they come to administration, they get a blank no. So if I have money and I can do it, then I will do it. But, you know, those are the things that we have that flexibility, and they're going to cut us off, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Noyola?
Yes, sir. I also agree with Mr. Perez. We should find the monies in our budget, and as a last resort, if we can't, then we'll get them out of the discretionary funds. And also, I would like to see the stipends better than our sister district. We should pay more so that we can keep our coaches and not lose them to the other district.
Dr. Moreno?
Okay.
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 Okay. Mr. Valdez? one more
Yes,
thing.
just one last thought. I'd like to address one point that Mr. Garza made. I think it's very, very important. An administrator within our district will get faster action, unfortunately, when they come to us than they do through the chain of command. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And that's the way the system works, and that's what makes America strong, okay? And again, we go back to the legitimacy of the funds, how they're spent and everything. Everything is there. We spend for activities that would never be approved, and yet they're allowable. Example, the clinics we had, okay? Great clinics. Clinicians coming in to train our band members, experts. And they would never be approved because they haven't been approved. My God, we got problems trying to get some of the instruments fixed. But when they go through the board members, it works. What we need to do is check and see where the monies exist right now. For example, say that you spent $20,000 from a discretionary fund, or allocated $20,000 for something that should have been paid through capital improvement. And let's say the money is there. All we have to do is do a little budget transfer and get the money from capital improvement out of there, because it has already been paid through over here. Those things can be worked out, and we're going to find that money, okay? And it's just a matter of applying the magic of working with the budgets. But $248,000 should not be, sufficient. And it's not really the board members. We don't get a penny out of that, okay? It's not the board members that are missing out on money. It's staff of the Laredo Independent School District. It's those dedicated coaches. Ahí no tuvimos eso, ¿te acuerdas? De San Antonio. It's those dedicated band members. It's those dedicated people out there in parent involvement and all that. They are the ones that are going to be missing out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I also agree with, I guess, everybody here that leave us alone. Don't take our funds. We have very good communication with the schools. This helps our communication with the schools. And if you need some more funds, which we do need them for the coaches, let's find them somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Nelson.
Mr. President, members of the board, with the extreme amount of respect that I clarify that, number one, it's misleading to suggest that we are asking to dismantle the discretionary funds. So when Trustee Valdez used that term, that's misleading, because we still believe that $40,000 for each trustee allows each trustee to still have a very strong communication with those colleagues and associates in our district that want to interact with the board. We also, with a extreme amount of humility and respect, take issue with trying to suggest that the board is the only righteous people who approve funds around here. It's just not true. It's not true. We deal with staff every day. We fund activities daily. And so to suggest that with your $75,000 that you each get, that's the only financial transactions happening in the district, that's misleading. The last thing I want to say is that we have tried to be responsive to the concerns that the boards have brought about athletic coaches. And I just want to be clear that we hear the board loud and clear. And if you want to keep your discretionary funds at $75,000, you can. I personally feel that's irresponsible, because in the meantime, coaches are leaving. We wanted to act on this next week and change it so that coaches can make decisions. Last thing I'll say very respectfully, and we can move on, and we won't bring this back for vote because it's obvious it will fail. We want to be real clear that our options, that you want to go check in finance and you're going to be able to find the money and all these things that you said, our options are as follows. We can go cut $248,000 of people. Okay, that would be the attendance officer that has been requested for attendance. That would be a staff accountant position that is currently vacant. It would be other vacancies, which is what we would do to absorb $248,000. Another option that we could do is reduce capital improvement. This board's already said that the $1.5 million in capital improvement is in place so that campuses can plan capital outlay items that they need, and we spent countless hours putting together a capital improvement plan. So for us, $40,000 for each trustee still allows you to have the discretionary funds, still allows you to interact with the campuses in a way that obviously is important to you. And we can do whatever the will of the board is, but in the meantime, if we don't take action on this the way staff is recommending, then we're left to go find an option, and until we find one, there'll be no recommendation to adjust athletic coaching stipends.
Unless the board.
Unless you identify another funding source.
Unless
No,
the
we
board
don't do
orders
that.
Yeah.
We don't identify the funders, you do.
Right, so for us, I'm just wanting you to know that the way we would identify it is new positions like counselors that have been requested, we wouldn't request all of those.
Or other areas.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
we have
find-
an
yeah.
excellent budget department.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You know, for next year, and I'm sure they can work out.
I think that,
Besides just
I think we
this
better
item.
cut this subject short, because, you know, we can get very emotional about this. A school district that has what, close to $500 million.
Right, but we're not
in
going,
assets
we're
and
not
everything,
recommending.
can't find $248,000, nah. And let me tell you what, we still don't know how much is going to be coming in extra.
The budget.
Yeah, from the budget or the state legislature.
Sure.
Those things have to be considered, and I think the best thing to do is cut this one short and move on to the next item.
So very respectfully, Mr.
Yes.
Valdez, if we're going to wait until the legislature to make decisions about the budget, well, then that's just.
No, I'm not
that's-
going to do any of that. I think we're
Right,
getting
no one
out
would
of
do
hand now.
that. I mean, we've got business to take care of, and if the
Well-
legislature comes back and they give us an excess amount of money, then we'll bring it to the board along with options. So that's the way it works.
So how is it that we will be able to approve teacher salaries without approving coaching incentives?
Oh, we agree. We agree.
How do you propose to have us do one without the other?
Because the coaching stipends will not change. They will remain the same based on the conversation.
No, but why is it that we are in a position to approve teacher increases but not coaching stipends?
You can approve that if you'd wish. You can approve the coaching stipend adjustment without taking it from the discretionary and leave it to the staff to go in balance, and we would be happy to do that. I can tell you, just so you know, because it'll be staff that comes to you and says that when we don't have an extra attendance clerk, attendance is going to say, that's unreasonable. When we don't hire counselors for our middle school substance abuse efforts, people are going to say that's inconsistent with what we want. And so we could approve it, Dr. Moreno, to answer your question. But for us to balance the budget, we're not going to bring a recommendation. Very respectfully, I'm not trying to argue. It's not emotional for me. This is business. I could tell you that we're not bringing a recommendation that includes using the fund balance. We've already done that once
So
on my watch.
how-
It won't happen again.
How are we seeing a recommendation for for salary increases, and we cannot see this as part of that?
Because on the stipends, it's $248,000.
And
where
on
we're
the
trying to get
salary increases is much more.
Right, it's 4.6 million.
Right, and you're bringing that to us to approve now, and we are accepting
240.
I'm not sure what your point is. I'm not sure what your point is, because
that if
for
we can
me,
do one, we can do the other.
okay, so I just want to be clear. What I'm hearing you say is that the board could approve an adjustment in the athletic coaching stipends by 248 or whatever, 243,000, and any kind of potential proposal for salary increases,
Right, like-
and we can be left to balance the budget, and I'm fine with that. As long as you know that we're going to have to bring a balanced budget, we're not going to bring fund balance. It's not going to happen. So I'm telling you that up front. So if that's one of your ideas, I'm not recommending that.
Okay.
So, but yes, we could do exactly what you're saying and go reorganize to make sure that that fits. Yes, ma'am.
Basically, what we're saying is.
There are many,
So
there are
we
many-
go to option C.
I'm sorry.
If we go to option C, I mean, it's $5.5 million to do in there. You add the 248 to the option C down here,
Right.
and so,
And then we can wait and see what happens with the legislature. Maybe the legislator will come back and cover it all. That could happen. They may not. I mean, so I understand the point, and there's definitely more than one way to address this.
Okay, Joe?
can we do this? Can we say yes to option, let's say, in this particular case, option C, and add the 248 to that? And I'm asking this as a policy or a
Sure.
mechanism in there at the end, that if it is covered by the legislature, or if it's not covered by the legislature, then
We'll come up with another
pull the
plan.
248 out? Is that what you're saying?
But if we have to,
Okay.
so
Or-
that's
Or
fine.
if it's covered, then we can bring it back in as an amended.
Absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
this?
Okay, there are several other options that we can consider. As an example, we can go through our budget. I don't know exactly how much, but we do appropriate or allocate some resources for capital improvements from the regular operating budget.
Right,
Am
we
I
mentioned-
correct? Okay, you can take a look at that and reduce that by the amount that we need. We'll transfer that amount to our regular operating fund.
Sure.
And the other one can be paid from fund balance, as long as we don't go over, say, $300,000, because that's a one-time shot, okay? In other
Right.
words, there are so many things you can do, and then you will increase the budget over here, and you will not have that same category again the next year, because it's a one-time shot. Again, there are several other things that we can do, but I suggest this, okay? At this point, we need to go back, and it's unfortunate the staff, I'm sorry, that board members have to go and do these things, okay? Well, I've got close to 38 years also of participating in these types of activities.
No one's questioning your
And
experience.
let me tell you, okay, we're going to find that money, all right? I'm sorry we have to do that, but we're going to do it. At this point, I think what we need to do is keep that on the side so we don't take a vote on it. And let's see what other options are available. There's so many things we can do. Every year, we can take a look at the pattern. Every year, how much money is really added into our fund balance. You know, we always have a little bit of money added into it. That money is general fund money. I mean, yes, general fund money. And every
Well-
year, we've been going up, 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 up. I haven't seen any report that it has been going down, 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 down. So, something to look into.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Good
All
idea.
right, next item, please.
Item number 8 is discussion and presentation on 2015, 2016 salary increases. Mr. President, members of the board, in a maroon-colored folder, you have an update on the options as presented at our last budget workshop. To make a long story short, we're recommending option C, which would include teacher step plus $1,500 for each teacher. We've included the proposed teacher salary schedule as an attachment, so you can see where each year what their step would look like in the $1,500. And then the idea from our last budget workshop for administration and paraprofessionals. Administration to receive 2%, paraprofessionals to receive 3%, and both of these would be capped at $1,500. We just want to be clear on this because I sense you may want to change your perspective. So like we have paraprofessionals right now that if they received a 3% raise, they would receive more than $1,500. And so the idea that I applaud Dr. Moreno for her efficiency and transparency, but it would be capped at $1,500. Now we have dozens and dozens of administrators who, if they got a 2% adjustment, they would receive more than $1,500. So they would be capped as well. So that's where we're at with it. And, you know, as it's been said, we firmly believe that the legislative session will help us identify the funds to cover these. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I know it's going to come out questionable, but, you know, we're developing a little pattern of delaying things to the last minute. If you look at some of our future, we went to look for a civic center architect in October. We hadn't talked about it since. Now we're waiting on coaches, so we can continue to wait on that. Well, depending on what we decide, I hear you on that. I appreciate that. And so on salary increases, last year we waited until the end of July, and the board, I want to say unanimously approved a $9 million increase. And for us, while we believe everyone deserves it, it became a challenge for us as staff that it seems like we're being pitted against you. We balanced it with a recommendation for some one-time expenditures. People like Dr. Moreno eloquently argued that that's poor fiscal leadership. And so we're hoping to get approval on our salary increases early enough so that we can bring a balanced budget with no fund balance recommendations.
Right. If you remember, I also suggested that we get our budget approved before, at an earlier time than from
Earlier
that
in
calendar
August.
that you gave us.
Yes, ma'am. We're working on that.
We're all agreeing that we need.
Yes, we're all on the same page. Yes, team.
And I do think the legislators are going to give us additional money.
I do too.
And hopefully some of it will come from
Pre-K,
the pre-K
yes.
program.
I think we'll be okay.
Mr. President,
Any questions, or
I
reactions?
just have one comment in terms of you know, I don't think it's been answered in the last 3 years that I've been here. Well, maybe it has. And I don't know, I'm looking more for opinions more than anything else. HR has given me some information in terms of, I truly and honestly believe that if we continue a pattern, I like the way the salary structure is working right now. It's fine. I just don't believe that we are addressing the fact that we continue to lose, or that we lose first-year teachers, incoming teachers, the second and third year that they're here. The biggest problem that I have with that is that we continue to increase the salary for incoming teachers, and we're losing more than half of them, or we're losing a rate of them by the second and third year. So we invested money in training and certain amounts of other cash or monies to get them going, and we lose them either to UISD or they go into another field. And so my idea had always been, if you start them at the low end of it and give them a signing bonus to come in until somebody gives us a commitment that they're going to be here 3 years, then we can continue to put them up after the third year, we can start giving them salary increases.
Sure.
But, I mean, we're proposing that we start them off at 47. When I got here, we were proposing to start them off at 41, 42. Then it went up to 45. Now we're at 47. That's 3 years. I don't know, out of the first year that I was here, I don't know the number of people that have been here from that point on to right now, how many are still working with us. But we continue to increase. I wanted to use that money for the people that are after 3 or 4 years, because I believe that any job in the private sector, until you show commitment at one point or another, you can start getting increases in your salary. So I just don't understand that, and I just needed an explanation from somebody to tell me why is that feasible that we continue to do that.
May I respond to Mr. Garza's point?
Yes, sir, please.
Mr. Garza's point is well taken, and we definitely need to do a recidivism study. So our staff will follow up on that. We've done some preliminary numbers, and if you really back up your comments, really precede your arrival to our team. There was conversations, I'm not sure if some of the trustees remember, that's actually the exact opposite of what you're saying. Where it was put all the money in the first 5 years to try and attract them and then lower it. And there was other trustees on this board that felt like that was outrageous. And so we went and we adjusted our step schedule to really if you'll see, like, for example, at year 25, the step schedule, year 25. At year 25, the step increase is $1,400. But you have to be in the district, you have to be at year 25 in experience to get that. Now, so our scale kind of has this bell curve where we're rewarding people that are in years 15 to 25 the most, and then it starts to go down to where it's actually just 200 all the way down to year 49. So I think your points are well taken, Mr. Garza, because, you know, this is a professional development issue. What's happening is, and everyone knows this, we're investing these millions of dollars in writing academies and professional development training, and then we're losing them. Our research also indicates that a teacher is most trainable in their first 36 months of being in the profession. And it goes down drastically. Not a whole lot of change to teachers once they've been teaching more than 3 to 5 years. So
I just want to find out if
So,
there's any evidence to support my claim that you know,
they should
we're
earn it.
losing them, and at what
Right.
rate are we losing them? I'd hate to.
We'll look at that.
Anybody hates to train somebody. I don't like for LISD to be a training school for UISD. That's really what I want.
So is
Yeah, me
there,
too.
is it possible for us to have an incentive where people commit to staying for 3 years to 5 years, 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, if they get that extra incentive?
You know, we've looked at that, and you definitely can try and hold people to it. It'd probably be a little easier to do, but the answer is no. I mean, if somebody wants to leave and they're going to go get hired in United, we're not going to be able to say, no, we're not going to release you. They're going to resign and go, you know what I'm saying? They're ending their employment with the district. We've tried to hold some people till we find a suitable replacement. I've been in part of school districts before that had special stipends for certain schools, and it was kind of a written agreement that we're going to give you this $5,000, but you can't leave, you got to stay for 3 years, those kinds of things. So I'm sure we could draft some type of policy.
That's what I'm saying, that and it kind of, well, there's other things in the private sector. You sign your contract and you can't go to a competitor within 150 miles, let's say. Well,
we
obviously,
don't
we
have
can't
that.
do that. That won't pass here.
I wish.
I understand that. But that it doesn't really go to the point that people are it's a free country. If they want to leave, they can leave. That's not my issue. My issue is that our internal policies support the fact that we continue, that I want to find out if we're continuing to make that same mistake over and over again in terms of
Hiring.
immediately investing in them
So
that they can just
let's get the study on why people left, because
Excellent.
if they're leaving because they didn't get fully certified, then
Yeah, we
we're the
want
ones that make the bad choice in having selected. See, this is another thing, are we making bad choices in our
Who we
selection?
hire.
Did they leave because they were in a probationary period and we didn't want to extend the contract? You know, that too was a poor
We'll look
choice
at
of
that.
our selection.
You know, another idea we can do, just in the interest of collaboration in our team of 8, is instead of paying the administration 2%, Mr. Valdez brought it to my attention, we could pay the administration 1%, and then the difference between the 2% and 1% is approximately $248,000.
No, 278.
Whatever. My point is that we can use that difference to pay for the coaching stipends. So one of the things we could do, if you wanted to, is, and this is what I hear, and hear me on this, Mr. Valdez, because what I hear from the board is that...
Not from the board.
Okay, if you just let me finish, Mr. President, I think you'll agree that
We'll hear from the Mr. Valdez.
what I hear saying is that the board is prepared to have a conversation about salaries for next year. The board also believes, and we need to make a commitment to our coaches. And our team, along with our staff, need to identify different options to cover those.
Right, and let me add that, you know, when we increased minimum salaries, when we've done all the other increases, we've never said that it's contingent upon one thing or another.
That's true.
So
We don't need to
really
get into that
shouldn't be
business.
singling this group out to think that their increases are contingent on something.
Yeah, I hear
Because
you.
we didn't do that to anybody else.
Point well taken.
Just sure that if we pinch here and there and.
But back to talking about new teachers, can we get
Yes,
somebody
we'll
to
do
give us a
little-
report on
How many teachers we have lost?
how many, when are we losing them? and-
It's not excessive, but we'll definitely bring you that information.
Mr. President,
We're not having like some huge.
Yes,
exit
Mr.
or
Perez.
I don't agree that we need to sacrifice the administration. Like Mr. Valdez has said, we can find money someplace else, but not at the expense of our administrators. I think they're doing an excellent job. I mean, we have to cut somewhere, but let's not use the administration as guinea pigs for that. I think they deserve what they need to have, and by capping them at 1,500, I don't know how it comes up, but we need to make sure that they know that especially the paraprofessionals, that it's not going to be 3%. It's going to be at 3% up to a maximum of 1,500.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Which is what the teachers are getting, is why that amount is there. Because that is what
It's
the
like
teachers
everybody's
are
getting 1,500.
Yeah, but it's a different level of earnings.
Dr. Nelson,
What?
I like
Mr. I'm
option
sorry.
C, and however, I would like to see no cap for the paraprofessionals or for the administration.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, 3% and 2% is that, and that's what they should get. No cap.
Yeah.
In other words, the pressure is for staff to find $248,000.
No,
There's no need for
5.4
cuts.
talking
million.
about two different things.
It'll actually be more than that. It'll be more
Whatever it is.
than 5 point. If we lift the cap,
Sure,
then it'll be
you'll do it.
more than 5.4 million.
Please define that when, I guess when we're getting into the final setting on this, what are the ramifications of going one way or the other? I think it's, in other words, yeah, we can sit here and I can go over here and think about 10 things that we can pinch so we can get those monies. The ramifications of doing those, I mean, in the spirit of cooperation and unity and for the sake of accomplishing something, we can all perform and do and get the money set, one way or the other. But the ramifications of doing those things are what matters.
So very respectfully, when you say like 10 things, can you give me a couple of them?
Yes, I mean, we can, most of them are unpopular. We just said one right now, go to the administrators, go to the paraprofessionals, go to our discretionary fund,
capital
go to
outlay.
capital improvement.
Yeah, okay.
You pitch that across the board, and it's gonna affect somebody down the line. Are we
Right.
cooperating with each other? Yes, we are. And we're all working
Compromise.
together to try and to reach a common goal. And some people are gonna like it. No, not everybody's gonna like that.
Well, I think that, I appreciate that. Trust, I apologize.
Okay, one more thing. Last year, we barely balanced the budget. Now, we're going to increase the budget, the salaries of teachers and everybody by what, a couple of $1 million? We're going over the budget of last year by $2 million. What's going on? Yes.
If that's in the form of a question, well, I can assure you when you add positions, the way we're adding positions,
No, I'm talking about the budget in general with the addition of the salary increases. If last year we barely balanced it with the increases from last year, now we're going to increase one more step from the budget from last year, at least $2 million more above that. Where are we going to get that money from?
well, that's a great question. You know, everybody seems to be waiting on the legislature to give us some kind of unexpected millions of dollars. I mean, we are anticipating somewhere between 4 to 6 million. And that's why we're bringing these types of proposals. It could be higher, it could be lower. But the bottom line is that whatever this board says they want to do for the staff next year, in order to balance the budget, 89% of the budget is human resources.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can get creative, as Mr. Garza said so well. We can bring him a little of this, a little, there's all kind of ideas, as long as we're clear we're not bringing it from the fund balance.
Next item.
I agree with that one.
Yes, Jojo?
Okay, how much money are we generating right now in fund balance this year? In other words, over the budget that we had planned? How are we doing?
A lot.
No.
Use a financial term.
I can't estimate right now. We're thinking we're going to meet the budget. Remember, we just increased our appropriations by about 1.5.
You know what I'm getting at? I don't believe, you know, you can get an accurate answer, but we're not going under, are we? In other words, we had planned, say, X amount of expenditures, and what we're receiving right now is meeting those expenditures. Do we or are we generating anything extra?
Generally, if you look at history, we do end up with excess at the very end, but it's very, right now, we're developing the budget more aggressively to where we're not going to have this explosive fund balances. And as a matter of fact, and when we do, we make, we're not increasing to the undesignated fund balance, but we're creating projects, we're finishing projects, and we're adding to the capital improvement plans.
Let me go back again to the same question. Are we generating a little bit more money than what we're spending right now? I guess the answer is yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
We have a budget, we have a
Basically,
balanced budget. I mean, it's,
All right.
Yes.
I go with
yes,
him.
Sir. The answer is yes.
well.
Okay, again,
Doesn't really matter
I guess
'cause
we
we're not
don't really
recommending
know.
anything from the fund
Like you
balance,
said, we
so-
don't really know at this point. But we're not making adjustments to cut, which means we're either at
Same level.
zero level or above. Okay?
Current law.
Okay. Next item.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. We really didn't get clarification on what to do for that, but I'll just visit with
Not
the
right
board
now.
president about it. Yeah, we just hope we don't wait till July.
It's up to our great administrators.
Okay, absolutely, yes. All right.
Clear then. Are we, because all of this stuff is going to come up next week to our regular board meeting, we're going to have to,
Right.
yes or no. So we're going to get clarification on number 8 and on number 7.
What clarification? Okay.
Item number 9 is discussion and presentation on the selection of an architect for the LISD Performing Arts Center PAC in request for qualifications RFQ number 2014-013. Mr. President, members of the board, the bottom line is this: you have a salmon-colored paper, and it is the will of the board. We don't have a recommendation, but we just wanted to provide you a timeline. We committed up on this RFQ in October of 2014. And because it's the Civic Center, we really need to time this if the board wanted to make any type of architect selection and redesign of the bathrooms, the theater, whatever the board decided, or maybe not to do anything. But we're going to have to plan that with our use of that facility. And so we're not sure if we need to just be done with this, and we're not going to do it. We're not sure if we need to go ahead and entertain a motion in a second to identify an architect so that, there's things that and I'm not trying to advocate for the selection of an architect. I know it's a board conversation. But we said that we were going to upgrade the theater of the Civic Center. And so, in my opinion, even if that was the minimum that we didn't know the scope of the work.
So did we vote not to do this?
No, we have not voted. That's
Okay,
why we're bringing
then
it in.
why are we not doing it?
We haven't voted.
Why are we not doing it?
Right.
Because we don't have an architect selected to help us lead that design.
But what design? We haven't decided on any design or if we're going to do it.
Right, that's true. That's why we're bringing it up. Because
The
if we didn't bring it
auditorium?
up, we'd probably go 6 more months without anything.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we're bringing it up because I don't understand why we haven't moved forward.
Move forward
Because
with what?
it's some, there's members of the board that think we shouldn't do it.
We have before us on a minimal level, the, and it can be $1 and it can be $12 million.
Right.
At the very least, we're still going to need an architect. We still need to evaluate each property, West Martin Field parking lot, the Civic Center ballroom, and whatever the little things, it can be for between $1 and $12 million that we're going to do. Either way, I think we're held, and now you can clarify this through Angel or through Mr. Pais on this, if we're going to need an architect for any little movement that we make over there because
Yes,
of
we
those
will.
bond monies. So we need to select and figure out what it is that we're going to do. I agree with you all. I mean, we don't know what we're going to do, but unless we go out there and evaluate what we have,
Okay.
you know, we have the swimming pool that needs work. We have we have the baseball field parking lot. Pretty much everything that we have internally within that's half a, you know, four block area that we're going to use those monies for. But we need to select so that we can move forward with that and not stop any progress because I can see some deterioration already.
But the question is, the administration building, where's it gonna be?
Well,
That's a whole nother problem.
That's part of the deal is that if we don't select now and somebody doesn't tell us, everybody gave us a presentation with the admin building being there. It doesn't necessarily have to be there, but if we're gonna be waiting to see that, my point is that we're waiting to see where it's gonna go. All these other little things that need to go on in that area are gonna continue to not be done. And so,
Can we have a workshop and with us so we can
Sure.
discuss item by item on what we feel is necessary?
think-
well,
fine.
why don't we get staff
delay it another month.
to give us a laundry list right now. We don't know. We can see superficially what we need to be doing at the civic or needs or not needs to be done at the Civic Center. But we don't really know internally, structurally, or any of that stuff, including the West Martin Field parking lot, which is atrocious. We need to do something with that. We need to get something going automatically.
You know,
Dr. Nelson,
yes, sir.
Mr.
if we
Perez?
do have a workshop, let's put some action there so we can make that decision there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Pettis. I appreciate your comments and Mr. Garza's as well. But, Mr. President, I just feel like, with all due respect, we know the scope of work on the project. We can add some of the things Mr. Garza mentioned. We're already looking at paving the pavement at West Martin baseball field.
Okay.
So that's a separate project. So you could add it to this if the board chose to. But no, we already looked at funding sources and doing that internally. Now, creating bathrooms and plumbing and all that, we're going to have to go get an architect for all of that. Now, and also, in my opinion, Mr. President, and I'm trying to be supportive of your position on this, I really feel like, man, we can talk about scope of work as big or as little as this board wants to do. Maybe we don't talk about the administration building right now. Maybe we just go with bathrooms and seats and orchestra pit and just the theater. Maybe that's all we do right now. That's some of the things the board president has mentioned, that some of these other things, the pool, the baseball field, administration building, some of these things may not be necessary. And I know Mr. President has been very clear on that. There's other people that feel like if we're going to do it, then go with one of these designs that was presented. And that had tennis courts, parking, amphitheaters, new theaters, pool redesign, and all we're saying is that if we didn't bring it up, it wouldn't be discussed. And if we go to a workshop, I don't mind, but it really would be a special call meeting because we just want action either way. Right. Even if it's to leave it as is and just develop a capital improvement plan, to just do minimal upkeep and go forward with no adjustment. Well, so it's just, which is different than what we told the public, but I just think if we continue to debate this too much, see, the other problem that we have is once the board takes action, then Mr. Pais, Mr. Velasquez, and several of our team members are going to have to come up with a timeline where there's going to be some time where the Civic Center is inaccessible. And that's huge for Society of Martha Washington and the other Pocahontas and all other these annual events that are booked. They're already booked. They're booked right now. Contracts, deposits in, and I don't mind telling them we're not going to have it, but we need direction from our board. So I'm trying to be respectful of both sides of this debate, but
The only other reason is because, I mean, the prudent thing to do, obviously, and you can, Sayali, you can tell me or us, what are those ramifications of not doing it? I don't want to really use capital improvement funds on that parking lot. That's what we got the bond money for. So those monies can be used elsewhere.
what?
So, I mean, anytime that we do that.
Give it to Joseph.
You know, what are we doing? So I don't want to use capital improvement funds to build the tennis courts either. That's what the bond money was there for. So
Or
either we
restroom.
take it from our kitty or we take it from that. That's the idea.
Next item.
So, well, we can go to the next item,
So-
but
so
we don't. So I hear us saying we're going to have a special call meeting on that.
Yes.
All right.
Dr. Nelson.
Yes, sir.
Angel, please don't forget the fence along Santa Maria at West Martin Field and back of Linedecker. It's embarrassing.
And actually, thank you, Mr. Noyola, for that. And the board president actually brought up some other concerns about the fence at Martin that we're going to make sure we take care of first thing tomorrow. So we'll look at that whole perimeter. May we proceed, Mr. President?
Yes, please. Next
Thank you,
item.
sir. Item number 10 is discussion and presentation on the Laredo ISD Health Benefit Plan. Mr. President, members of the board, we really would like to table this item, and we're going to bring a
Good.
detailed presentation from our health insurance consultant in the end of May or in June. And it'll have closer to a summary of our numbers. But the main thing we wanted to make sure you know is that one of the things we're researching right now for a recommendation to the board is under our self-insured model, the Affordable Health Care Act is requiring us to offer some of our employees that are substitutes meet a certain threshold of they work enough hours where we're supposed to provide them health insurance. And so we're gathering that exact number of employees and the 2 or 3 options that we believe the board can select in order to meet the expectations of the Affordable Health Care Act. Ms. Ayala, you have anything to add to that? Any questions about that?
No.
If not, then may we proceed?
Yes, next item, please. Number 12.
Item number 12 is discussion and presentation on the Memorandum of Understanding for a collaborative literacy partnership with Texas A&M International University. Mr. President, members of the board, we have a situation where we really want to focus in 15-16. Our theme is going to be on literacy. And it's a data-driven decision, and we're looking for several partnerships. One that has been coordinated by Ms. Mirtala Ramirez and our Chief Academic Officer is an opportunity for us to partner with the Lamar Bruni Vergata Trust, Texas A&M International, and ourselves. For us, the funding that we're requesting would come from our federal Title III funds. And it basically requires us to have reading coaches reinstated at 2 of our schools. If approved, we'd have 2 the first year, 4 the second year, and 6 the third year. Lamar Bruni Vergata, we provided this chart for you, but they offer, they're going to spend, I think it's several thousands of dollars each year. And Texas A&M International will be providing students who are studying reading as a course. Part of their course would be and go to tutor kids at these elementary schools in reading. So there is a professor that teaches reading, and he would be coordinating this collaborative between us and the United Independent School District. And based on the presentation we had in our Curriculum and Instruction Committee and this brief overview, we are recommending approval. We can answer any questions or comments you have at this time.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, I support all these things, okay? I wanted to ask a couple of questions that will give us more background information on where we're heading. Are you familiar with the Closing the Gap strategy? Okay, a Closing the Gap strategy is a target of the Higher Education Coordinating Board. Is that what they call it?
Yes, sir.
They have put together some strategies to see that we close the gap that exists right now with minorities, blacks, Hispanics, women, and so on, low socioeconomic in the state of Texas. And they make a specific recommendation that we must target community colleges in our efforts. I didn't make this recommendation, they did, okay? And when you look at all of that, you know, I have no problem with going with the university, but this is the recommendation based on a lot of research. And you're all to blame because you send me that information.
No, and we're doing that too.
In other words, you got to look at this. Where are we going? This is where the experts are recommended that we go. And we're trying to go the other way. Okay? In order to accommodate everybody, well, we have to go with both. But that's not the way it's being done in the state of Texas. I'm sorry, recommended in the state of Texas. And there are 3 other programs recommended in that strategy, closing the gap. Okay? I don't know if we are implementing any of them.
Yeah, pre-K is another one.
Okay?
That's it, yeah.
But this one here says very, very specifically that we must partner with community colleges throughout the state of Texas.
It does.
Okay? I'm not making this up. I think you know that, Dr. Nelson.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then why are we going the other way?
We're not. This is not either or. It's not either or. If we do a partnership
Well, this is
with
different.
TAMIU, we're not saying I actually can show you a 2-hour meeting today between our staff and Laredo Community College. We're we're increasing our technical dual enrollment. The community college has so graciously voted and approved by their board to reduce tuition for dual enrollment. So it's, if you're trying to suggest that we don't have this partnership with the community college, once again, that's misleading.
That's not what I said. I said a little while ago that we're accommodating both, okay? In other words, we're really placing a burden on our efforts because we are accommodating both, okay? And like, which one is the one that our people need? The experts say, I didn't make this up, it's in there. The experts are saying, you go that way, okay? And I'll bring you the copies. That's where I've been burning all that paper that they give me to make copies with, you know. And I believe it's a 29-page report.
Right.
And I read the whole thing. I also read another one that you sent us. I don't know if the rest of the board reads these things. And it says exactly what I said about early college. It's for low-risk socioeconomic students, period. Okay?
Okay, let me say something. The senior colleges, which is the, TAMIU, they have students that are teaching or that are going into reading, which junior college does not. Okay, junior college is basics.
Prep.
They do not specialize the areas. And I think that's why we must go to TAMIU. In this, if it's going to be a collaborative literacy, okay, junior college cannot provide collaborative literacy, and TAMIU can. Okay? So
Thank
I
you,
think
Mr.
this is a
President.
good program.
Well, I said I support it.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that that's
We
not
can
the
do
direction.
other projects can
That's
happen.
not the direction. Okay?
Yes, sir. Okay. Item 13?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item number 13 is discussion and presentation on the 2015-2016 Student Code of Conduct. Mr. President, members of the board, we discussed this thoroughly in our student services meeting. We have provided for you an overall summary of all of the comments from our main users, our campus staff. And they have went through and asked that we bold some things, that we add some things, that we delete some things, that we clarify. And we've provided for you a summary of all of that. Our next steps, we're not asking for approval in May. We're asking for approval on consent agenda in June so that we can get it printed so that kids have it by registration. Our next steps is to work with our committee, and which includes our Director of Secondary Education, our Executive Director of Student Services, and a host of others on our team. And what our intent is to clarify what our staff, our campuses have asked for, and make a final recommendation to the board. Some of it they've asked to take out, we don't want to take out. Some of the things they've asked to add, we're not sure. But we're going to come up with an evidence of collaboration, make a recommendation. But we wanted to show you what the staff is saying and allow the board to have any kind of input that you want that's separate and apart from our recommendation. So you have basically 2 or 3 weeks to complete that activity.
Okay, Mr. Valdez?
Yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Nelson, is there any way that we can make the student code of conduct reader-friendly? When you get that book, it's addressed to parents, okay? Now remember, you've got to look at the educational level of our parents in general, okay? When you look at that, if you can read that, you pass the test, because it's very complicated. And yet it has sections that apply mostly to students and so on. If we could make it more friendly, I know by state law we have to have that.
Include some legal.
Right, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But we need to make it workable. You ask parents, you know, are you familiar with the student code of conduct? They thought I was talking about religion. I'm serious. You know?
It is.
That's how bad it is. They don't know what it is. You know, they don't know what it is. And
I understand. We'll take a look at you know, it's written at I think a 7th grade level, and so you know 7th grade reading level. But we'll see if we can.
Maybe you can just put the
Water.
highlights of the changes first. You know, of everything. I think everybody in here has pretty much gone over it, and for our sake, because I always remember the ones we talked about yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Some of them were absolutely not.
Absolutely
you
not.
You just don't want to. But I mean, so that the rest of the board, again, you know, some of us don't belong to certain committees, some of us, you know, and I'd like for everybody to be able to collaborate with each other and see really what the differences are in a lot of those.
Well, and it's been our experience that one of the things the board tends to just historically discuss is the dress code. And we've got staff saying today, very respectfully, not all of the principals are saying it, but we got principals saying require socks. We've got principals saying they can have laces or they cannot have shoelaces. And so, you know, we think kids need to be well groomed. We think shirts need to be tucked in. We think that the color choices are fine. We've got campuses who say open up the color choices. So these are all things that you can just consider how much of that you'd like to see amended. If not, we'll be bringing a recommendation in June.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Perez.
Do you think we can have some kind like, remember those Cliff Notes that
Yes,
we
sir.
had at college? That would say brief summary.
Yes,
of
sir.
the whole thing?
Absolutely. Good idea, Mr. Pettis.
Any other business?
No, sir.
Having no other business, we're adjourned.
Vámonos.
La que hizo la recomendación de cortarlo fue él, esta es la recomendación de él.